So I'm Dan Gizzi, Vice President of Business Development for Learning Tribes. I'm based here in the Miami office, and I'm very excited to walk you through what we're going to see today about the digital trends impacting today's learner. So the reason why learning is following Laurent is because we know that people are the heart of any company. And in order to keep these people happy, we have to train them, right? So I just want to give you a quick idea of who Learning Tribes is. So we're an international learning and development organization. And we were founded in 2004 in Paris, France. And we were actually, one of the key things in 2007, we actually joined the Sitel family then as the venture for training and development. So that was missing from Laurent's side. That was the most important thing in 2007. The iPhone was number 2, right? Thank you. So some of the key things that we do as Learning Tribes is we're very focused on the journey of the customer and the journey of people around that. So we're very focused not only on training and development, but we reinvest every year 15% of our profit into research and development, not only into the latest innovations, but also into the people. We have 105 active clients around the world with 300 partners, 100 associates internally, and we're in 5 locations in Paris, Miami, Sao Paulo, Shanghai, and our newest office in Coventry. So we're going to walk through the 10 learning and development trends for 2018. This is a list we've been producing since 2012, and it covers not only the trends of the future, but trends that are happening today. So first and foremost, we all know the quote of Henry Ford attributed to that you can have any color car you want as long as it's black, right? One of his other famous quotes was also that the only thing that is permanent is change. So from the same man that had a permanent quote around nothingness was also the same man that focused on change. So with the change of the employee is also the rise of the universal agent. So we really focus in around in that automation is key to keeping successful as well as being able to be successful in your job. So the understanding that the universal agent is here is very focused around, especially in the telecom industry, where we know that there's been a lot of consolidation and a consolidation of different types of opportunities that were once spread out amongst different companies. We know now that bringing these skills together and bringing these talents together is really key in order to allow the agents to grow and, more importantly, focus in on the customer experience. As we move through the list, learner-centric. So this is now focusing in on the learner and less so on the content. So this is really focusing in on being an efficient training program for your agents. So as Don mentioned, the last thing we want to do is be putting them into a room for 20 days, 30 days, and having them going through a 100% instructor-led PowerPoint. So thinking about how the learners learn. So the different approaches to training around the 70-20-10 model. So learning not only from formal, but also from the informal, the interactions amongst your colleagues, as well as the interaction with tools on the internet such as MOOCs, Kooks, and things like the free training on YouTube is really key to being able to become that next step. One company who does this really well is L'Oreal. L'Oreal has a very strong formal training program around the world, not only for their customer experience, but also for their own internal employees. They actually have 26 different brands that they represent. So it's a very big challenge not only to teach people what it means to live the L'Oreal values, but also the values of the specific brands they may be representing. In China, they have a very strong formal learning, and one of the things that they're doing is implementing the informal in a formal way through WeChat. So you heard mentioned earlier that our phones are going to change, our interactions are going to change. It's going to be based around how we learn at any given point in time, being able to learn on any device as well. So who's seen the latest trends on the sales floor? For those of you this morning who had a chance to interact with Philippe and everyone else, we know that headsets are the future, right? So being able to take technology and move that forward is key to being able to have, the universe can't see anything, I'm getting blinded. Being able to integrate technology in a way that it makes sense. So immersing the learner not only in the face-to-face interaction, but finding the right content and technology to drive that learner to the next step. One example of this is being able to talk around culturalization. So we know that, for example, agents are placed all around the world. So you can look at this from a perspective of if you're an agent in the Philippines, if you're an agent in India, you may never have known what it was like to walk into Toys R Us on Black Friday. It's not anything that they've ever experienced. So being on the other end of the phone, trying to take a call and understand the challenges that you're faced when you're trying to find Elmo, and Elmo's not there, right? And then you call the 800 number. So one of the opportunities around immersion in technology is the incorporation of 360 video. So we know that VR can be very expensive, but it can also be a very good training tool. So being able to integrate technology effectively when it makes sense is key for today's learner. And one of those other important things is we can build all this technology, but where is it going to go? So thinking about the ecosystem, so content and curation becomes key. So the pressure is on for learning and development departments. How do we use this technology effectively, right? So we have to think about how to leverage the partnerships across not only the internal networks of the teams, but the teams that can be external partners to help as well. So one of the clients that we see that does this very well is Sanofi. They're a global pharmaceutical company, and they have very strong skills around training and development of their internal employees. But one of the areas that they look for help is an outside partner for training and development as well. So how do they go? How do you do the train-the-trainer pieces? Do you use your own resources internally, or do you source a staff for that? Finally, we've reached the best slide of them all. Attawad. What's Attawad mean? So anytime, anywhere, any device. So learning can happen when you are ready to do it, not when we tell you you have to do it. So the power of digital really allows us to be continuously accessible, training is accessible, and learning and development happens when it's free for the learner, and it happens when they're free from constraints as well. So obviously we know that one of the challenges for designers is how do we develop this content to be able to be consumed in the time and on the place specifically where the learner wants that. Air France is a great example of this. So they have gate agents around the world, and what they do is they actually provide tablets. So before you even reach the counter with the problem that you're having, an agent can interact with you, help you with their problem before it becomes a big problem with a tablet in hand. But as part of being able to use those tools to assist on the floor or assist in the airport, they're also able to train just in time. So they have just-in-time training included on there, not only on the tools and systems, but more importantly on how to interact with you or us when we're flying on Air France. They're able to have soft skills content right there available to them so they can see a quick video on how to diffuse a situation before it becomes a problem. Next up is the concept of spaced learning or blended approach to learning. So this is how do we maximize the benefits of training in a digestible way that makes sense. So the concept of spaced learning is really the repetition of highly condensed training in a way that not only are you learning all at once, but breaking up that repetition with interaction. So that can be any interaction in the classroom, that can be taking breaks, and more importantly, the idea of bringing the integration of technology into the curriculum when it makes sense again. So e-learning, VR, virtual instructor-led sessions as well, really gives the opportunity to take the face-to-face to that next level. So we believe in an approach that allows for this to still happen, but at the same point in time provide the self-paced, self-guided resources that appear on the left-hand side. So on the right-hand side, we can see training again from one-to-one coaching up through large seminar-based training, and then the basic e-learning up through the inclusion of the robots at the top. But the only way that this works is by making it fun. So tying it together through a certification and gamification, so allowing people to feel like they're not just learning something, but they're enjoying it while they're doing it. As we move to a world that allows the users to be disconnected from the training, one of the key resources we need to be thinking about is that there's a very dark future for catalog providers. And the reason behind this is that, again, when learners want to be able to learn on their own time, they want to be able to learn their own way as well. So we have to think about how we distinguish a training plan and individualize this training for each learner, which is a big challenge, not only, again, from how you interact with the content, but more importantly, finding a way that makes this make sense for each journey and each learner. So historically, training has taken place in a very sequential format. You start with an introduction, you move through the content, you take a final and exam, and then you've completed your course. We move into the more conditional thoughts, so thinking about how content can be skipped if you have that skill set. So being able to start to plot your own journey throughout the same training path. As we think about more complex concepts, we start thinking about how the ability to move from concepts at the top to concepts at the bottom. So level 1 training, level 2 training. So really being able to become that universal agent, right? So getting the key resources in the beginning, but still having a continuous learning path and a continuous learning journey throughout your entire career becomes very key. And then finally, we talk about adaptive. So adaptive is the concept of each individualized learner having their own individualized learning plan. So we start with the same core concepts for everyone at the same time, and each learner will then learn those concepts at their own pace. So this gives an opportunity not only to progress through content in a way that makes sense, but it also gives you the opportunity to then provide additional skill sets for agents that are ready or a learner that's ready. Everyone's favorite, right? ROI, what's this going to cost me? So when we think about return on investment, the whole idea is how do we transform learning and development from a cost center into a strategic investment? So we really have to think about that. Not only does this need to be relevant, but it also needs to make sense. So tracking the metrics, tracking the results for faster results as well. And then more importantly, this allows us to connect to more individualized business objectives beyond just the fact that we know we need to change, how do we change, but making it relevant for the bottom line. So this is an example of a training plan that was created last year. This was a 15-day instructor-led training that was shortened to an 11-day blended approach. So it still had face-to-face interaction as well as e-learning content that was developed around soft skills and also tying together concepts of culturalization and tying together the concepts of the storytelling approach to being able to understand a customer's challenge, how it interacted with the tools, and ultimately having a good outcome. So 55,000 hours were reduced from the training for over 2,300 agents with almost a $1 million expected annual savings just in the opportunity to just shorten curriculum in a way that made sense, as well as, again, providing a return on the investment. And ultimately, the greatest number on here was the agent satisfaction. So not only thinking of the bottom line, but also are the agents going to be happy and get through this and be able to do this in a way that makes sense. As we think about emotion, the emotional quotient, the emotional intelligence becomes more important than the IQ. So for example, we've seen a lot about Alexa. You can ask Alexa to tell you a joke. It's nothing more than a pre-programmed algorithm. She doesn't know why it's funny. She doesn't know that it's a joke. For training to think about how emotion can make sense, so to be able to tie back to the learner journey and tie back, Avianca Airlines had 2 opportunities for crisis management training. One is the standard traditional path of following process to be able to provide back on a very disastrous situation. The other is to think about how we tell from a storytelling approach and tie emotion back into that. They chose path number 2. So giving the agents the opportunity to be able to feel the emotion of what was happening, but at the same point in time still be able to get through a difficult situation in a way that made sense for a good outcome. And we've made it. We've made it to AI. So the rise of the robots is here. Futurist Thomas Frey in 2016 said that by 2030, the largest company in the world that does not exist today will be a training company. I hope so. I hope we exist. I hope we're there, right? So the way that we have to think about AI is really embedding into our daily tasks. So, we think about what I mentioned for Henry Ford. The only thing that is permanent is change. So being able to say, how do we take these skills, how do we incorporate them into a training program? One of the ways that we're doing that here at Sitel is through the training of our 77,000 employees through our corporate academy, My Academy. So we think about all of these different learning strategies and what makes sense not only for their career path, but also what makes sense for, at the end of the day, the ultimate outcome, the customer experience. I want to thank you for your time. So we are available. We'll be in the CX zone right outside of this after the break, so we'll be able to display and show you some of the technologies. We actually have the AI set up so you can see how the headsets work, and then we can talk about any of the other curriculum if you're interested. Thank you.